What is your definition of independence, especially like on the drum set? Go
So
ahead.
for me, independence is like being able to play different rhythms or even time signatures on separate limbs at one time.
Yes. Yeah. Being able to play different rhythms or time signatures with different limbs. And I think that's a really good, that's a very good definition. Where that's pretty much what we're going to be dealing with today. We might talk about some other things within that. I'm going to give you guys a quick demonstration before we get into the teaching. So independence, as we're talking about, means being able to play different things with different limbs. And one thing I'm going to stress as we talk about these possibilities and as I show you what I've written out, it doesn't end there. Some of the things that I was just playing, not only did it involve independence between my left foot and my hands and my right foot, and maybe even some like overlapping rhythms, or I didn't really do the odd time stuff yet. But also, independence means being able to play something independent of what you're hearing in a musical context. So it can mean that you hear a band and you play against it, and you know how to play against something that's offbeat, and you know how to keep your beat steady around that. One example would be like ska music with all the offbeat guitars, and you have to keep the downbeat while the guitar plays all the offbeats, that sort of thing. And then another type of independence would be dynamic independence. And this is actually a really important thing to work on when you're practicing these independence concepts that we're getting to. Don't forget to add dynamics to your different limbs, and not everything will be the same dynamic. For example, when we get to maybe let's just say eighth notes on the hi-hat, that can be something you play independently against, and then you can vary the dynamics of those different elements. Actually, that's something I talk about in my groove lesson course, where we're talking about how the hi-hat dynamically can be independent from the snare drum. I'll give you a quick demonstration of that. I'll just play you're going to see these rhythms in a minute. I'll play some 16th stuff with my left hand. right? And all that was more or less the same every time on the hi-hat dynamically, but I can vary what my left hand does in terms of dynamics. So when I went very quiet with ghost notes, I went with rim shots while trying to keep this steady. We're going to talk about internal dynamics within. Actually, I don't know if we're going to have time for that. We're like internal dynamics within a pattern is also something you can explore. So let's jump into. We're just going to jump into how I teach dynamics. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. You guys are going to get this PDF. I hand drew this just for you guys, which was just kind of fun to do. So in terms of independence, what you guys should see here is 2 sets of 16th notes. And this is a special way that I've started to draw and demonstrate 16th notes, particularly for this concept. Does everybody see the 2 stems? Everyone should see like these empty stems on top. There's no notes drawn in, but there's 4 16th notes, but they're blank, right? And then just the same right below it is 4 16th notes with all the notes drawn in. Cool. So this here is the first page's concept of no notes and all notes. And if you don't see it, if there's no dot on a stem, that means it's a rest or it's blank. But it's very important that that is still there. So this here is what I call the 16th note grid. Some of you might be familiar with this concept because it's as old as drumming itself. And the idea here, or it's as old as 16th notes itself, rather. What we have here is every possibility of notes and rests within 4 notes. If you take any grouping of 4 notes, it's going to be one of these possibilities. So what I have for this first one, if you can see my mouse, and I don't know if you can, if you can see my mouse, then the first example at the top left is the first 16th note is filled in. So you're going to play on the 1 or the 2, the 3, the 4, and you're going to rest on E and Does that make sense? So that literally means just playing quarter notes and resting on the other 3 16th notes. And also, this brings up an important subject, which is I'm showing you guys all these notes, including all the empty places, because you want to still really be aware of your rests. Even those little 16th note rests, they still exist as rests, because a rest isn't nothing. A rest is silence in time, and that also has to be something we're aware of. So the first example was filled in the first 16th notes, and then the next 3 are blank. That as a rhythm, if you repeated it across a measure, would be 1, rest on E and a, 2, rest on E and a, 3, 4. So I'm going to share my screen again. They see this guy. Okay. So our second, let's see if it's coming through. So we have a note on the second 16th note. So what do we call that placement?
That'll be the E of the beat.
Yes. Yeah. So that second drawing means you rest on the 1 or the down. We're just going to call it the downbeat. You rest on the downbeat because that could be the 3, and then you play the E, and then the and would be silent. The third example is a note on the and. The fourth example is a note on the So those are our 4 possibilities if you're going to play a single note somewhere within 4 16. After that, we have all our 2-note combinations. So you can play on the 1 E, the E and the and is this one, if you can see my mouse. And then we also have, you can play on the 1 and the which means you rest E and. That would be 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4. You can play on this, going to the second column, you can play on the 1 and. That's the same as 8th notes. You can play on E and you rest on the 8th notes. You're playing offbeat 16th notes. And so those are all our 2-note combinations within 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 possibilities just within that. Then finally, we have our 3-note combinations, which is the 1 E and, second, rest on the downbeat, and then you play the other 3 16th notes is the next one. You can rest on the E and you play 1 E and 2. This rhythm is often one of the trickier ones, third from the end, and that's 1 E, 2 E. Finally, we have all 4 notes is important not to forget. You can play all 4 16th notes. And then the last one at the bottom is none of them. And I always include that because it's important to remember that rests still happen in time. Guys, feel free to take a screenshot of this now, but you are going to get a PDF with this, and there's a couple more pages to go. This needs to be something that you memorize, and you can start using it in a lot of different ways. Before we get to actual independence, switch back to this. Before we get to actual like combining rhythms, which will be soon, you need to just know all these rhythms really well and be able to play them in time with a metronome is really important. Also, being able to count them is key. So, a really good example, I'm gonna run through this for you. A very, very good example will be using a metronome. And when you're using your metronome, make sure that you are counting all the 16th notes and you clap through that list. If I place, and I'll do it slow for a moment for you guys. So this is a metronome at 80. And if you clap through the list and you start with just being able to clap the 1, the downbeat, all the E's after that, all the ands after that, all the uhs after that, you want to be really, really familiar with mentally where to place them. I'm going to show you 2 different ways with the metronome. So first is just going to be downbeats. Okay. So what we have is 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. You want to be able to say that really fluidly and easily. Really good tip is when you run out of breath, this is actually very important. Don't pause what you say. You want to actually inhale while you're talking like this. I'm going to crack myself up. When you're counting and you run out of breath, if you breathe in as you continue to talk, you'll be able to keep the rhythm going consistently. What you don't want to do is 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a. You don't want needing a breath to break up the rhythm that's happening mentally. So rather you need to do this. 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3. 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 20 and a 2E and a 3 and a 4E and a 1. So that's just to practice counting. And then we clap these places. Let's slow it down for a minute. So I'm at 70 and I'm going to clap all the downbeats while I say all the 16th notes. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 4E and a. Okay, that's pretty basic. And then it's very important to be able to practice clapping in the other places while you still count all the 16th notes. So I'm going to clap on the E's. I'll do it 2 measures each. Clap on the E's, clap on the ands, clap on the uhs. It'll go like this. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. Okay. So I want you guys, if you haven't done that exercise before, it's extremely powerful to do that along with a metronome. Take your time when you do it because you want every note to be really comfortable when you clap it versus where your perception of the time is with your counting in the metronome. Don't be afraid of when you're using your metronome, set it to play all the 16th notes so that you are really precise in your timing. And that would look like this. I'm gonna bump it down. I'm just gonna tell you these tempos I'm working at as I demonstrate. I'm at 60 and you're gonna hear all the 16th notes. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. So let me give you one more example with this sheet of how to use this counting and clapping system for practice. So you really have your rhythmic sense really precise. I'm going to show you the 2-note versions. If you can see this PDF, you should see all the 2-note versions. So we have 1E, rest on anda, then the E and then you have the anda, and there's a couple more than that. I'm gonna clap them for you with the 16th notes. This is gonna come into play in a bunch of different ways as we move forward. Again, the click is playing all 16th notes. We're at 60 BPM. I'm going to clap the 2-note combinations while counting all the 16th notes. And then what you guys can do with this is you can take the PDF and you can go through the entire list. So here is the 2-note combinations. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E, a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. So that is all the 4-note combinations. Don't be afraid to go even slower, like 1E and 2E and 3E. And then also, after you do the clapping, especially if you joined last week, you'll know to do this. Make sure you do this on your kit, on your pad with your sticks, because whatever sound you want to execute, whether it's percussion and you're using your hands or it's something on the drum set with your sticks, there's always like a discrepancy where you have to feel and get a sense of the timing. You have to move your body, move your sticks to execute the sound and strike the instrument at the exact moment that you want to. So make sure you do the same thing with your sticks. Just as simple as one hand only, 1E, 2E, or right left is the same thing. 1E and 2E and 3E, 4E. So all those things are kind of like the prerequisites for building independence. Is you want to be very comfortable, very aware of all the rhythms in these little snippets. These are all kind of like little cells of rhythms. You can start to move them around. You can start to combine them too. You can have 1E and then 2E and as a rhythm. So 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E and a. And that's something that you want to like build upon once you do the 1 4 grouping cell through the list. You can start to do 2 grouping cells, you mix and match, and you're pretty much doing any possible rhythm within 16th notes. I'm going to show you guys our triplet grid next, and then we're going to get into the independence. And we're going to go to the next page, and that is our triplet grid. There's not much to see here. I feel like I've missed 1 or 2 in my brain, but I don't think I have. So in terms of triplets, we're talking about the possibility of notes and non-notes within 3 notes. And there's only a couple of them because we're dealing with fewer notes. So you can play on the first of every triplet. You can play on the second of every triplet. You can play on the third of every triplet. You can play the first 2, the second 2, leave the first one out, the first and third, or all 3, or of course none of them. So all of those are your triplet possibilities. And it kind of goes, you can do the same thing if you want to. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and so on. Getting comfortable with that is also very important. Don't leave triplets out because a lot of popular music these days, and I'm guilty of this too, we all kind of create music in 16th notes. We forget to do triplets, but don't forget the triplets because it expands your vocabulary so much. So now page 3 of the PDF, and we're only 3 pages long. We're going to have, yes, Hardy said, don't leave this out because jazz. And that's exactly right. Jazz independence, which is on our list today. Even if you never play jazz with a group in your life, studying the independence of it is something you really don't want to leave out. It's really kind of a cornerstone of drum set independence is jazz independence. Okay, so how do we use this whole list to actually practice our independence? We have all our 16th notes. We have all of our triplets. And so all it is now, it's a matter of combining 2 off of those lists and assigning them to different limbs, and then we can like build the complexity after that. So all you have to do is you need to know what a ostinato is. Has anyone heard the term ostinato? And does anyone know the definition of it? Go ahead.
Ostinato is something that stays constant over which we can, put more stuff.
Yes, exactly. So an ostinato is a rhythm, yes, a repeating pattern. Mike Tyson, I can't believe Mike Tyson tuned into my class. That's incredible. An ostinato is a term we use in music that means a rhythm that repeats and it stays constant. Mike can't believe it too. Okay, so an ostinato is a rhythm that stays constant. It repeats, and it's a very powerful musical tool. It's not a rule that when you start one of these things, you have to always keep it going. But in terms of building your independence, it's one of the strongest tools that we have. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pick an ostinato, a rhythm that stays the same. And then with some other limb or combination of limbs, we will play other rhythms. And all you have to do is use these grids, these checklists of rhythmic possibilities in order to build out your independence. We've got our 16th note grid. We've got our triplet grid. And then I've drawn out a couple of examples for you guys of ostinatos. I usually teach foot ostinatos and I'll demonstrate them. But for today, I wrote out hand ostinatos only. So A is just quarter notes. Quarter notes on the hi-hat, so that's why they're X's. Quarter notes are really, really, really important. Even though we can all play quarter notes and we can all play boom, bop, and stuff, you want to make sure you go through the entire list. I will demonstrate this for you guys. I'm going to show you the PDFs again so we can have, you know what? I might just grab the papers. I don't know. So we've got the quarter notes, and then what we're going to do is we're going to play all our 16th notes against the quarter notes. And we're really going to go over just how completionist you want to be in order to build your independence. So I'm actually going to, this is going to be easier than sharing the screen constantly so I can point to stuff. I'm going to grab these papers because I did hand draw all of these for you because honestly, this stem down approach that I have started to use to demonstrate this grid. So this stem down approach where we have empty note placements. I don't know how to do that on a computer. So I just drew all this stuff for you. So we're going to take one of these combinations as our ostinato. That's going to stay the same. For now, we're going to stick it just on one single limb. And then we're going to play through this list against it with another limb. So we're going to start with just our hands. I'll play my right hand on the hi-hat. And again, A is quarter notes. So literally what that means is I'm going to, with my right hand on the hi-hat, play the first 16th note, the downbeats, and then I'm going to go through this entire list with my snare drum on my left hand. So that's where we're going to start. I'm going to show you, I'm going to go through the whole list with my left hand, and then we're going to take it from there. So what I'm going to do is going to play the one with my left hand, the E, the and, the one E and one and so on, all with the left hand. I'm going to demonstrate that for you guys. Here we go. I'm also try to count along because I'm going to mute my mic because otherwise the drums will be distorted. So 1 E and 2 E and like that. Here we go. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. Okay, so that's 1 E and 2. I'm going to switch to the E's. 1 E and 2 E and 3 and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E, 3 E, 4 E, 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. Now the U's. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1, 2. Now the two notes. Okay, so I made sure to include the rests at the end because you just don't forget that that's a possibility is the main thing. Since you guys can't see it, I went through the whole list with my left hand as my right hand continued to do quarter notes. And in a nutshell, that one thing you should be able to do between any two limbs that you choose, and then you should be able to add other limbs to the mix. That alone is an incredible checklist to go over. And as we talk about all these, it's kind of like the more you find each possibility and you work on it, you're checking off things that you can now do. And it builds from there, and you get really comfortable playing different rhythms and different combinations of rhythms because you've first done this work of going through this whole checklist. So continuing with the quarter notes, you should be able to play those quarter notes with your right hand. No, you should be able to play those quarter notes with your right foot. I pointed to my foot, while your left foot plays all the 16th note possibilities. 1E, 2E, 3E, and so on. You should be able to play your left foot on quarter notes while your right hand plays all the 16th note possibilities. You should be able to play your bass drum and left hand on quarter notes while your right hand plays all the 16th note possibilities. Those are all things to make sure you can do now, so that if you run across all of a sudden you want to play this little combination that comes to your mind when you're playing music, your body will be ready to do it. This is the kind of thing that just like opens you up so that you don't run into these little coordination challenges later on. We all know that feeling of you're trying to play a new beat, or you're learning to place your bass drum in somewhere new and you keep tripping up over it. And this is what just eliminates those problems. One more quick example I'll do is my kick drum, which you can't see, but you can hear playing all these possibilities. And I'll play my left foot on quarter notes and my right hand on quarter notes. I'll just go through part of the list so you can hear it. So I'm going to play quarter notes, right hand, and left foot, and then bass drum on 16th. So I went through my bass drum playing 1E, 2E, 3E end, 4E end, while keeping those quarter notes with different limbs. So once you can do this with just your hands, don't forget to mix it up and add your feet to the mix, or just playing left hand lead, etc. Quarter notes are probably the simplest ostinato you have to think about, but it's still important to do them all and find all the possibilities within that. So this is a good framework for showing you what you want to do with all the more complex possibilities. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the third page of our hand ostinatos, and I'll demonstrate this really quickly. B is super simple. It's eighth notes instead of quarter notes. So our new ostinato is eighth notes. And I'll do hi-hat and then 16th notes on the snare drum. What I'm going to do is you can keep all those eighth notes super steady if you want. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But also don't forget what I said in the beginning, which is practice your dynamics and your dynamic independence. So I will actually play my hi-hat with a loud note and a quiet note, because that's going to be a really common thing you want to be able to do on the hi-hat, which is this. So I'm getting this movement, and so dynamic independence and also kind of like a movement independence with my right hand on the hi-hat while I can do other things with my other limbs. And then I have to make sure that it all lines up still. So I'll play left hand, 16th note grid, all those possibilities. It's a checklist against my right hand playing eighth notes with dynamics. So I want them all to work against each other and be in time. I'm going to add a metronome to the challenge because you always want to do this with the metronome. The drums are a bit loud for me to do this properly, but I'm going to do my best. So I'm going to put this on quarter notes. Actually, I'm going to put this on eighth notes. Okay. So we're at 85 eighth notes, and I'm going to play that with my hi-hat, and then I'm going to play the snare drum for all the 16th notes. I'm going to try to keep with it as best as I can because this is kind of quiet compared to the drums. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Two notes. Eighth notes with both. Okay. Eighth notes with your hi-hat, be able to do either hand, and being able to play any of those other possibilities against it is kind of, it's just the work that you have to do in order to play, you know, most modern music and just be able to have the freedom that you want on the drums to have fun and execute whatever your goals are. Okay, this is a great question. Hardy asked when I moved over to chat, how fast would you suggest we take this before we divert the huge chunk of focus in our practice to something else? That is a very good question. First thing is, how fast? I would say if you're talking about tempo, then do it slow. Just do it crazy slow. That's always my answer to that, is you want to start it nice and slow. And then also, if you attended the first class, right, get your hand technique really comfortable so that you are very relaxed and are in control of your sticks, and then you incorporate these things. And really, this type of independence work has been the bulk of all of my practice, for sure, without a doubt, over the past 20 years, is independence and making sure that my timing within that is golden. And timing, dynamics, touch on the instrument, like all those go into it, but it's always some sort of independence that I'm working on. So, you know, do this nice and slow and then speed it up. So I'll play eighth notes again and I'll play it a little slower. So you should, so I'm going to demonstrate it slow and then fast. So I'll do like, I don't know the tempos. I'm going to do it without a metronome, which you shouldn't do. But it's just quicker to demonstrate for now. Okay, so slow and then fast real quickly. And so on, and fast. All that goes for your bass drum as well. Same thing. So eighth notes on the hi-hat, kick drum plays all the possibilities. Like you just have to like go through all of these things, right? I'm skipping a couple. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, Okay, C on third page is very important. I'm going to actually share this with you so I know that the camera's not flipped. So the third example on our checklist is going to be offbeat eighth notes. And this is a really key thing. If you're starting to do this, this is where you can start to practice your grooves. So we have offbeat eighth notes as our rhythm that stays the same. And with that, you're going to play independently against it and go through this checklist. And this is where you're going to start to build new possibilities in terms of grooves and really being aware of how things start to fit together in new ways. So I'll start it hands only just to show you a couple examples, and then we're going to put it into a groove context. So here we go. So offbeat eighth notes played on the hi-hat, and I'll play a couple of examples with my left hand to show you that, and then I'm going to add to that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Two note combinations. 1 E and a 2. 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2. Those are a couple examples of offbeat with the left hand. So once you do that, you're opening up the groove possibilities an enormous amount. So let's back up for a second. Let's go back to all eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Add to that a backbeat, and then you have to go through this list with your kick drum, and all of a sudden you can play just about any beat you need to in terms of like a 16th note musical genre. So if your bass drum can play all these possibilities, you can do any groove you want to. A lot of you guys probably already work on this, so we're going to keep going from there. But a quick example. So 2 and 4 with a snare drum on top of eighth notes would be this. And stay the same the whole time, right? Those 3 note combinations with the foot, they're pretty tricky. Once you can do that, like you know, just start slow and ease into it is the thing. Okay, so back to offbeat eighth notes with the hi-hat. If you add offbeat eighth notes with the hi-hat and you add a backbeat to that, you start to see all these different things you can do groove-wise. So what I'm going to do is offbeat eighth notes, 1 and 2 and. I'm going to add snare drum to 2 and 4. That's this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? And then my foot will do the whole checklist. There we go. Now, when I say go through this whole checklist, There's so many possibilities. I haven't done them all, or I haven't done them all in a while. Some you're going to find some that you're going to use a lot and you're going to get good at them, and some you're going to barely use. Make sure you do them, maybe more than I did before this class, but it really sets you off in a good way. So we're going to go over one of my favorites. This you're going to hear this everywhere. So D, if you are comfortable reading 16th notes, that's a rhythm of 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Basically, you're resting on the E. So that's 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. This is one of my favorites to practice independence against. And I've discovered that it's the favorite of a lot of drummers too, that I know. It's kind of a standard thing to be able to play this rhythm and some other similar ones like it and develop your independence against it. And then you build that into a groove context. So what we have is we have 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. And then with either your other hand or your foot or some other combination between them, you play against those possibilities against it. We haven't even gone to triplets yet. So here it is. I'll play left hand. I'll just keep it the same for now. Left hand on the snare drum against that. Okay, I'm going to go through the whole list. Actually want to stop there because that's a really important roadblock I came across is building an independence within this. You want to be extra careful that you line your limbs up. So what I'm doing, I'm going to show you this. Here we go. I'm playing this one with my right hand, and then my left hand, when I get to some of these offbeats like this one, if my left hand is only playing the I have to line it up with my right hand on this note. And I want to get that as dead on as humanly possible. And even better than that, really. Because it's so easy for that note to flam as you get faster. And you really want to pay extra attention to that. So with a metronome, that's a key one to do. In fact, I like to set my metronome up. I use an app called Tempo Advance. And I like to set my metronome up so it only plays that pattern. And then I play with it and I develop independence against it. And you really, I remember when I started to develop independence against this pattern specifically, I had to slow it way down to get rid of any flams. As you're working on this, make sure there are just 0 flams on any note. You want everything to hit perfectly together. That's one of the most important parts of this. So actually, 50, that's pretty good. So it would be like this. Let's see here. I'm going to play it quiet and really, you want to line this up. So I'm going to play with my left hand. 1 E and 2 E, 3 E, 4 E. 1, 2, here's left hand. Okay. That was one that I found was really hard to line up. And so you really want to make sure as you start to place your limbs on different offbeats against an ostinato that you get it extra clean. Where was I? So I'm going to go back to the grid again, left hand versus right hand, playing 1 and a 2. That's what my right hand is going to do. So here's that whole list now. And this is where we get to, like, you can spend a year on this alone and do it slow and clean, and that's the type of thing that will pay off in your playing. I spent so much time on this, and I can't like recommend this enough. So just that one thing alone, we're talking about it for 5 minutes, but it's a year's worth of practice that will help you like just catapult your abilities really far with that one thing. So do the exact same thing as that, but with your right foot as the going through the checklist against the ostinato. I'll give you that example. I did it slightly out of order, but that's the gist of it. Same thing at a backbeat while your foot goes through the checklist, and you can play tons and tons of grooves, right? So okay, so you can keep going down the list. Once you can do all of them, you mix them up, and you're playing all sorts of beats, right? I'm playing. Amanda asked, "Am I playing eighth notes?" My right hand is playing 1 and a 2, so 16th notes. When you get the sheet, my right hand is playing D on the third page, and I'm going through the 16th note list with my foot. My left hand's playing 2 and 4, so it's all 16th note possibilities within this. I'll play a groove. So now that's the grid versus 1 and a 2 plus 2 and 4 backbeats. And then what you add to that is you could just like start, if you just are mixing up these rhythms, you're then playing all sorts of beats, basically. You're able to do that, right? So from that independence, you're able to play like any kick drum pattern you hear in a song. Does that make sense, everybody, so far? Give me a thumbs up in the chat. What BPM do you start? Do you suggest us to practice the sheet starting out? Amanda, I would say just very slow. Like, so 50 BPM, 16th notes, 1, E, and with a metronome to get really comfortable with the rhythms. You want every 16th note to be dead on with that metronome. So especially if you use this app or another app that plays 16th notes, this is 50. I was way slower when I just said 1 E, and that was just not 50. So here's 50 16th notes. If you can get everything just extremely precise against this, it's going to be really just so much more powerful when you can get it that clean and in time. And the rule, it's not a rule that you always have to play perfectly on the grid, but you want to develop the control to do so if you intend to, which is going to be a lot of the time. So you probably know the concept of being able to play like slightly swung grooves, or just like the fact that, like, humans don't naturally like play like computers. We play a little off. That's, That's great, and that helps us feel alive and human. But you want to be able to do that on purpose, and so that means practicing extreme precision and control of that precision first, and then you can go off from there. So really very slow, dead on timing with this stuff, and it's going to really open up what you can do. Now, my favorite thing that happens when I'm working all this is you start to feel your brain change as you do this work. It's just the most awesome thing. We're going to get to a couple odd versus even groupings in a few minutes. But when you hit one of these possibilities and you trip up over it and you're like, oh darn, I can't play that one, and you get off. That's a great moment, because that's exactly what you're looking for when you're doing this. You want to find the things that trip you up and then fix them. And as you start to work on that one thing, this is what I love. You can feel your brain changing as you do it. There's this feeling of like your mind opens up and it becomes comfortable, and it just just feels awesome. And I still have that happen with some of the multimeter kind of things, and I'm working out new combinations, and just like as I meditate on it and play it and repeat it over and over again, I can feel myself getting better overall as a drummer every time I work on something like that. So when you work on these things and you find something you can't do and you work on that one thing, what's so cool is that you're not just getting better at that one thing, at that one weakness. You're actually, I find the more I clean something up like this and get it really precise, whenever I practice something like that, and then I go to just play the drums and play anything, or play in some other context where I'm not even doing what I was practicing, but the more I dive into that deep, really concentrated practice and getting things really lined up, whenever I go to play afterwards, I'm playing so much better. It really like transforms what you do, working on this as much as possible. Let's see here. Okay, let me give you a triplet example, because we haven't done triplet examples. Quarter notes first, real quick. Actually, what I'm going to do, and this is why I actually draw this out this way now, is because I don't want to think of these notes in just one facet. So for these triplets, the reason why I draw it as a note and then two blank spaces is because I want you to be able to think of these in different ways. So rather than a note and two rests, think about it as three notes, and the dot is where you accent. So this first example would be accent, quiet note for triplets. The second example would be quiet note, accent, quiet note. Third example, quiet, quiet, accent. So you play all three, right? And so these are your possibilities of accents within triplets now, or 16th notes for the other page. So what that means is you can practice making sure you're comfortable with your dynamics and your dynamics within your independence as well. So if I go through this list, I'm going to go through the list as triplets as accents. So I'm going to play all the triplets, one and a, two and a, but I'm going to accent these, okay? So I'm going to accent one and a, two and a, and then accent the and. One and a, two and a. Also, it helps to count it all and accent vocally. So say the syllable out loud with an accent. Say it louder. That really helps your rhythmic perception of this. So we have one and a, two and a, add the accent, one and a, two and a, three and a, four and a. Then you have the second triplet, the and. One and a, two and a, three and a, four and a. And you can go through that whole list. One and a, two and a, three and a, four and a, one and a, two and a, three and a, four and a, one and a, two and a, three and a, four and a, one. Two notes. One and a, two and a, three and a, four and a. Do the same thing. Single strokes, alternating your hands as triplets. It's going to be flipping your hands. So I'm going to demonstrate that. I'm going to play quarter notes with my feet. So one and a, two and a, and then I'm going to play triplets, single strokes, and go through the list as accents. So what that looks like, without accents, it would be this. Now I'm going to add the accents. So we have. And then, so the accents flip hands each time with triplets. Right, left, right, left. And then you have to play the offbeat. So the middle triplet also is going to flip hands, accenting the inside note of the triplet. So 1 and 2 and but with singles. Here we go. The whole list. Faster. So I'll tell you right there, that's something I need to work on because that should, if I couldn't get it just like that, then I don't think I have it enough. So I will totally spend an afternoon or two just making sure I'm comfortable with that again, that little thing right there, and all those offbeat placements with single strokes, so it's alternating. It's a tricky thing, right? Okay, the last independence ostinato that I've written down, and I'll probably give you a couple examples of some foot ostinatos as well. The last ostinato on the page is going to be our swing pattern. So that is actually going to involve the left foot as well. And we're talking 1 and 2, ba, 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 and 1, okay? That becomes our pattern that stays the same. And then we practice our triplet grid against it. And going to start with left hand playing all these triplet possibilities. And that becomes your comping language. In jazz, your ability to play rhythms as a way to complement the other band members while you're still swinging is like the key skill to develop as a jazz drummer. And this is kind of like the classic independence thing to learn. Is you probably have heard of Ted Reed's Syncopation, the Blue Book, a very, very famous book. You can distill all of that triplet language into this page. Or 16th note language into the 16th note page. And if you just know, find a rhythm that stays the same, practice this stuff, you will have done most independence books. We'll get to odd times later. But anyway, so swing pattern becomes your ostinato. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And you play the triplets against it. So I'll demonstrate that. foot, same thing. When you go through this list, it then becomes, you can start to combine them, foot versus hand, all this stuff while you play the swing pattern. And you start to think about melodies. Those rhythms become melodies. And because you've gone through this list, you can then play that against the swing pattern, and it becomes like the start of your jazz language. So a little more advanced than just going through the list would be starting to sing melodies, think of melodies, and then play them with your kick and snare. Ba-da-ba-boo-doo, ba-da-ba. Like that kind of thing. And then you do that against your ride and foot, hi-hat foot. It eventually starts to sound something like this. I'm just going to improvise in this kind of context for a second. Straighten that out, and it becomes the previous pattern of 1 and a 2 instead of 1 ba 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 ba. Yeah, buzz rolls, same thing. I love that as an independence checklist. We'll come back to that. If you straighten out the jazz thing of ba 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 ba, and instead it becomes ba 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 ba, and then you speed that up. That's modern jazz in a nutshell, just straightened out jazz, and that's also just a key independence thing to work on. So we have 1 and a 2 now, back to 16th notes. You add your offbeat hi-hat to that like this. Let's actually open up to some questions. Change layout, tiled. So, someone unmute themselves and ask me a question, because I'm sure there's stuff within that we can talk about, and I want to make sure to get to what you guys want to know and what will help you the most. So, who has a question for me? Tim, go ahead.
So I've been going through a book called Advanced Techniques for the Modern Drummer, and it's kind of like a jazz esque type thing. And there's been instances in that where they're using 16th notes as the comping figures. Okay. And is there any ever merit to try and keep like a swing pattern in the right hand, say, and then like try and meld 16th notes in that as well? Is that like ever used, or is that kind of like just a weird thing that's like to try for independence, if that makes sense?
It's a thing. It's very hard. I'll tell you the truth, I can't do it. Sometimes I'll mess with it, and even recently I'm like, I really need to be able to get that better. I know some guys that can do it.
Right.
And especially if you want to get deep into playing advanced jazz, I would say to learn how to do it, but it's pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, I gave it a go, and I was like, this is probably out of my remit, to be honest.
Now, they might be just swinging the 16th notes. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3.
Right.
They might be swinging the 16th notes. In that case, it's the exact same jazz language as 1 and 2. It's 1 E and 2 E and 1 and 2. Da, ba, da, 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 da. It's just swung 16th notes is almost the same as 16th note triplets with some notes left out.
Right.
1 and a 2 and a 1 and 2. We've 1 and a that's 6. Let's see here. 16th note triplets would be 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then swung 16th notes would be leaving some of the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, or 1 E N, a 2 E N, a 1 E N, a 2 E N, a 1 E N, a 2 E N. It can kind of be the same language.
Sure. They kind of like blend into each other, I guess.
Yeah, and it's honestly, it's been a while since I've gone into that book. Plus, those older books, there's no video demonstrations.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know exactly what they intended. But that's also the point of drum books, is that you take them where you want to. Was that Jim Chapin, or who wrote Advanced Techniques for the
Where have I put it? Let me have a look.
I forget. I think Ted Reed was Syncopation, and maybe Jim Chapin was.
Yeah, it was Jim Chapin. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, what a great teacher he was. Yeah. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Notes versus triplets, very hard. I know some people that can do it, and it's very impressive. But special uses. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, cheers, man.
Yeah. Who else has a question? Let me know. Raise your hand, or go ahead, Gareth.
Thanks, man. I got my microphone working now. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah.
Great. So I'm really intrigued to know if you have used any particular ways of kind of recording your progress through these different things. I use a lot of these different exercises in my own practice. I teach it quite a lot, and it's one of the things that I can never seem to get across to students enough, is this idea that basically you have to just put in the groundwork. And like you've explained to us already, that there's no way of getting away from that. If you want to have full control of all of that, then you have to do it. But it is always one of those things that, I've got into, and I get lost in it and I love it. But when you start this and you look at it from the outside, there's just potentially such a scary amount of possibilities. Like, have you used any particular ways of kind of guiding yourself through that, like recording it in any way? Or
that's a very good question. Well, I'll tell you the truth. For me, I never recorded my practice much per se, but that's kind of because I grew up in the studio. So I got a ton of experience recording myself for music and pushing myself to perfect that. So it's the exact same concept. You need to be able to record yourself and listen back and know what you need to work on, because it's very hard when you're playing to hear if you have it or not. You might feel like it's on mentally,
yeah,
but when you listen back, you're listening from a different perspective.
It's like the assessment side of things, like actually having the recording obviously to see, and then you really learn and understand whether you've got it. I guess what I mean is more the recording, like physically, kind of like you talk about the checklist kind of thing. And if you think about the checklist working for one element, you change one thing, and then you've got this huge checklist again. It's something that's kind of put to me that, like, I'm just interested, because I literally just get students sometimes to sit with a piece of paper and say, right, this is like, I've done hi-hat number 1 with all the kick drums and all the snare drums. And like, I'm just intrigued to know if there's any way that you have gone through that, and the physical, like kind of.
Do you mean like maybe like a notebook of your progress and checking off what you can do?
Yeah, those kind of things. I'm always just
Yeah.
intrigued to know if anyone else uses any other particular things that.
I mean, for me, I've never written that down for myself. In fact, when I practiced this stuff as a teenager, I didn't even have it written down anywhere at the time. I just had it memorized, and that's kind of the point. So
Yeah, likewise.
I think it just depends on where you are and where you want to go as a drummer and a student, and if that's something that helps you. For me, this is kind of, because it's been the focus of my whole life. I didn't need a checklist of, I'm working on these two things and I can't do this particular subset of that. I just knew that and would focus on it until I got it. And so that's been my experience. And then often what happens is, as you work on this stuff or you work on something more or less unrelated, like maybe some like fill patterns and complicated chops and stuff, it's almost really useful to like do it until it is very useful. Do it until you can do it so well you don't have to think about it and you have it perfect, and you're just kind of, like I said before, meditating on that pattern with a metronome, have it really flowing in time. Just do it for a long period of time. Get it so good that you don't have to think about it. And just forget about it.
Yeah.
Just put it away and don't worry about it, because that thing you've practiced will then, you're just going to do it at some later time without even thinking about it, and it's going to be really good, and it'll just kind of naturally emerge in the musical context when it's appropriate.
Yeah. Part of your musical being kind of thing. Yeah, no, that's cool. Thank you.
Yeah. That's a good example, an experience I'm sure a lot of you guys had, and I had this as well, of practicing something really hard. I just said practice this thing. Practicing something really hard, some fill that, man, I've got this and I'm killing it, and this awesome little triplet fill, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it in my next jazz band performance. I remember doing this in high school, and I had this awesome jazz fill. No, sorry. It was a triplet fill, but it wasn't very jazzy. It was kind of harder hitting. And then I had a jazz band performance where I'm going to do this fill. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to crush it, and it's going to sound amazing because I went to take a solo after all the other soloists. And then I go to play it, this awesome fill, and I play it in my solo, and I play it well, but it just doesn't make any sense. I shouldn't have played it. It made no sense for me to do it there. It sounded really out of context. Everybody knew it, and definitely, if you've done this before, we've all made this mistake. You kind of go like, "Ooh, I shouldn't have done that. It wasn't musical to do." And the whole reason is because you practiced it in order to, and then you wanted to show it off instead of practicing it until it's internalized and it just comes out naturally when it's supposed to, as you're reacting to the music. And that's where you want to get.
Yeah.
So no checklist. Just
no. Thank you, man. Just interested. Thank you.
Yeah. Who else has a question? Raise your hand or just go ahead and unmute yourself. Joshua, yes.
Hey,
how are you?
Not too bad. I want to ask something about a little concept. I don't know if it's like an original one or just like whatever, but like it probably isn't. Let's be honest. Like counting independence. And like the importance of that. So like I've been exploring like playing like, I don't know, triplets, and then like counting 5 over it, and like playing 5 and then counting like 3 over it. Like, is there much importance of that or like application and like you could like
So, absolutely, that's a huge thing. Could you explain your particular exercise? I'm curious about that. So you said counting 5, playing 3 over it. That could mean a couple of things. It could be triplets and counting.
Yeah, I meant triplets. Yeah.
So
like
instead of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that what you mean?
As in like you play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like that.
Yeah.
But
that's the whole thing. We could spend 2 hours on that alone.
But I just want to know like the importance of it. Like, I like it sounds cool like practicing in your room and everything, but I can't really see like using it anywhere. I don't know how to.
So that's a excellent question. Let me see if I can boil it down here. What we're talking about, and honestly, I'll probably demonstrate. I'll give you some demonstrations in 3, 5, and 7. So the idea of playing odd numbered groupings and phrases in even numbered time, there's 2 purposes to it for me. One, I do it in some like very layered, complex ways as a way to develop all sorts of independence. And as this is actually the exact thing that I've found, that if I practice that and then I just play anything else, I'm playing better just overall. It's kind of, it's a way to retune yourself, not just physically coordination wise, but also mentally. So accenting every 5th note in triplets often is going to sound, it's hard to fit it musically into something. I'm going to give you some examples where you can, but it's often going to sound like it doesn't fit if you don't do it right. However, it opens your brain up, and especially what you're talking about and what I'll demonstrate is that thing I mentioned earlier of I can feel myself just like getting better at everything as I'm practicing one thing. Those types of exercises are amazing for that. Let me see about an example. And then they do have practical uses as well. I'll give you one quick example. So also within independence, and I'm just going to whip through this. We don't have time for me to really break everything down. You might have seen, I've posted and reposted this a couple of times, something that I call like an Instagram post I've called the 5-7-4 challenge. And that's the 4 is quarter notes with my left foot. The 7 is I'm playing my bass drum in 7 or 7/16. 1 da 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 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1. That's my bass drum, and then my hands are playing single strokes, accenting every 5th note. That independence, as a practice, just if I practice that and lock it into a metronome for 10 minutes, I'm a better drummer afterwards. And then B, you can take little snippets of that and they become new phrases in regular 4/4 time. So I'll show you that real quick. So here's the independence example. I'll play this one. So this is going to be quarter notes, 7 with the bass drum, which you can't see, accenting every 5th note with the left hand. I'll play that for you real quick. The whole cycle, right? What I find when I work something like that out and spend a lot of time perfecting it, breaking it down. By the way, I never wrote that one down. And if you can figure it out piece by piece without writing it down, that's a great exercise. But also feel free to write it all out, figure it out on paper. When I spend a lot of time practicing that, I'm just getting better at everything. I'm cleaning up singles. I'm cleaning up 16th notes against the click. I'm getting my kick to play offbeats while I do that and accents in different places. That's just not some avant-garde exercise in itself. If you just took 4 of those notes or 8 of those notes, that's a phrase you can use in 4/4 because you're playing 16th notes. That whole exercise becomes part of a context and a language that I can actually use in 4/4 time in 16th notes, because I don't play a lot of odd time stuff in actual real life application. When I'm recording in this studio for records and stuff, it's all 4/4 stuff. It's all pop tunes and normal patterns, but I want to be able to play that 16th note offbeat thing that might come up in a song and make sure it's like super solid and feels amazing. And I do that through this checklist and through the odd time stuff. So back to the 5 against 7 against 4, I'll play it again for you, and then I'm going to play the 4/4 context of what it allows me to do, if that makes sense. So check this out. That's the, here we go. That's the exercise again. Okay, but I can use it in this kind of context. It's a quick way of developing independence in this kind of 16th note single stroke context. I can take the first 16 notes of 7 against 5 against 4, and that's a phrase. If I keep it going, it sounds like this. Okay, but I can stop it after 2 or 4 quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that right there, let me unpin myself. Now I can see you guys. That was taking a polyrhythm and turning it into like a phrase that you could feel normally. Ba 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 da ba 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 ba, and just stop the phrase there, and there you have like a chunk from the whole exercise that cycles around an odd time for 21 freaking downbeats. Just when you do the whole thing, you're also practicing small snippets that become something you can use musically very easily. And it's, again, to me, that cycling is a way of checking off a ton of independence off my list. And we don't have time to like go over all that. It's a lot of fun, but you could also just 3/4 accenting every third note, which is not on this list. Make sure you can play every third 16th note against an ostinato. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 1 and 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2, and that's dotted eighth notes over the bar, and make sure you can do that. And so it can be as simple as 3 over the 4/4 stuff, or it can be as complex as 5 and 7 combined over 4/4, and you still will find like a way. It'll come out naturally, and it's going to build into something like really useful, honestly, as well as just improving just general drumming skill stuff. Any other questions?
I've got a question. Is there any particular way that you would suggest us to practice the exercises that you gave us in order to improve our changing the dynamics in every limb?
Okay. Yes. Two things. Let me see here. In terms of dynamics, Again, for those of you guys that saw last week's class, we talked about controlling your dynamics very carefully, and then you can take that and you can become even more like granular with it. So not just quiet and moderate and loud, but everything in between, get that as smooth as possible. And then just, again, do it against an ostinato. So I'll do that against, I'll pick a foot ostinato. I'll play like a bossa nova. And I'll play my dynamics with my hands against it. But again, like I'm going to do that, but make sure you do it separately first. Here's that. So I'm going to play single strokes with my hands against a bossa nova with my foot as the ostinato. And I'm going to bring the dynamics up and down with my hands. No, but I do know a lot of you guys are tuning in from Europe, and from even India and Indonesia, which is probably even a later time zone. So thank you guys so much. On that note, I do have for you guys in August, I'm doing some things at an earlier time because for a lot of you guys, this is kind of late. So I'm specifically doing for August, I'm doing an earlier time for some classes, a longer drum camp. So we're going to do 3 hours a day for 3 days, August 7th, 8th, and 9th. That's going to be 11 a.m. Eastern time. But we're going to do this stuff, but like even deeper and do like 3 hour intensives, like a 3-day course. And I hope you guys can make it because that's going to be a ton of fun. We're going to take this and go even further with it. And well, I mean, to be quite honest, I try to be so succinct with this stuff that in one drum camp, you're going to get everything you need to know for 10 years of practice. So that's the plan. And then hopefully next year I'll get to Europe. But at the moment, that's so up in the air because I don't know if I'll be allowed to. You know, I've been quarantining, but because so many Americans have not, who knows if I'll be allowed in Europe. That's pretty funny. Okay, so you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It means so much. I'm going to get those PDFs to you shortly, within 24 hours. I'm going to stop recording now. Also, I'm going to get a link for you to watch this back as well. I'm going to stop recording. Bop.